Any questions heading into this game?
Chuck, you harp a lot on sack differential. The last 2 years, you guys have been on top of that. I'm curious, when did that kind of really become a really thing that you?
Well, I think this. I think on offense, over the years, I've learned more and more it's a quarterback stat than maybe an offensive line stat. They go hand in hand. And then look, defensively, you've got to draft to it, sign it. Like, we can all say, hey, the sack, it's one part of, what quarterback is playing with 3 Mississippi and what quarterback's playing with 2.5 Mississippi. When we were kids, it was 1 Mississippi, 2 Mississippi, And so the clock in their heads is important.
Is this a time of year and with all you have at stake where you're ever conscious about where the team is at as far as focus?
I think it's when I say from an experience standpoint, I mean, again, it's a big game, it's an important game, and it'll be bigger. And so it's the same approach last week. I don't spend a lot of time on that. More time and energy on how to approach this game, their strengths, and how do we handle and play this game. I think that it's a similar approach to last week's game, and so I think playing it at home again, and I'll say it again, that the environment, we're gifted with the altitude. That's just where we're located, so no one gets credit for that except whoever decided to move the team here. All right? But the crowd noise, and it used to always be when they got to the line, the crowd noise when he enters the huddle, 1 communicating to 10, it's amazing, because I've been on the other side of that where someone didn't hear it in the huddle, and so that noise factor prior to the huddle beginning is a big thing.
Sean, you've talked about that crowd noise for the past couple of weeks before games. Have you noticed it?
Absolutely. Kansas City, and then last week, and then you look at the penalties, but even earlier in the huddle can be very problematic. I just know. The message from me to the quarterback, and then him shouting in the huddle the call. There's a stress that goes with that too. Like, that's stressful, and so creating that stress is a big advantage.
Have you noticed that increasing throughout your tenure here?
Yes. Yes, absolutely. And you got to earn that. In other words, in New Orleans, because of the dome, it was, you couldn't hear yourself think, and then. But I think the part that so often was the noise peaks when they're coming to the line of scrimmage, and if it's peaking as they enter the huddle, it's very difficult.
Before you came here, did you know that the home field advantage was so good, when you were coming in as a visiting coach, or is it even better than you maybe expected?
I'll be honest. Looking at what were the important factors, it was important that it was a football town. In other words, that it was in one of those spots in the league that's important. And then most importantly was front office ownership. And that was most important.
Sean, I know you're in the middle of it right now, but another 12-win season for you, like some milestones this year. I'm curious, how important to you is the concept of just kind of personal legacy as you're going through this?
Well, Patrick's the guy that reminds me of all this stuff. I've never had like an office or anything, and so someday in storage. We'll pull out all the stuff, and right now, it's like that song where you're sitting at a poker table. We're not counting any chips right now. We're just trying to continue to win and to win. And the fun part about it is being around a young team that's experiencing a lot of this stuff for the first time. That's the thing that keeps you young. Yeah, that's what I would say.
You mentioned their returner, I think, the other day, but their kicker, is it similar to Aubrey, just kind of the leg strength being something you got to be?
Yeah, all of that. The temperature, the wind. We'll get out there pregame, top of the call sheet. I'll put down Will Lutz, arrow this way, their kicker, arrow this way. Just kind of, and we kind of get a feel for that pregame, because they all like to go out there and back themselves up, and so paying attention to that each direction allows you to know what's the yard line we're defending, or what's the yard line we need to get to, and each week that's different.
Sean, you guys are obviously top of the league defensively, both in the red zone and on third down. Is it common characteristics that lead you to be really good in both those, or are those sort of separate?
I think when you're good on defense, let me say this. There have been a history of teams in our league that maybe were middle of the pack defensively, but were very good in the red zone defense, whose teams competed and won championships. So the red zone defense and the 4-point plays, and the field goals last week, that was one of the top red zone offenses, and so, man, that's critical. That you force them to get 3, and so. But I think, look, third down defense. When we go to keys to victory, it always gets to the third down and red zone. But to be good on third down is to be in the right side of the call sheet for me, and the right side of the call sheet for Vance, which is the other side. And so that early down efficiency can greatly impact. What are your CFL stats? How many times are you getting a first down on the first 2 plays of a possession at any time? Usually when you can do that, sometimes those third down numbers then get a little bit skewed, but they go hand in hand.
The way the kickoff rule has changed field position a little bit, does forcing a field goal in the red zone feel like maybe even slightly a bigger win because of where you're likely to?
Well, I think the biggest thing I've noticed is, let's just say Team A is returning, and let's just say 29-yard line or 30-yard, whatever, and let's say they gain 6 yards and they go 3 and out and they punt. Team B at that moment is in a negative position, where when I say a neutral field position would be, 20-25 starting. And so that's greatly changed, and so like last week we were going to take the ball. They won the toss and deferred. Well, we got the ball. But right off the bat, we'd like to start the second half with the ball, but what happens with field position on the very first sequence, if you looked around the league and just said, hey, the returning team went 3 and out, where did the other team start their possession? And I'm going to say they probably started it in a negative, not a neutral, but probably, inside the 20. And so anymore, when a punt goes into the end zone, they're starting on the 20, you're like, you feel like that used to be a big deal, and now it's like a win. We had the unique penalty last week where, we accepted the penalty on the kickoff, then we kicked it out of bounds and put it on the 25. And but I do think that rule change has been a little bit more significant than any one of us that sat in those meetings felt like when it was the 35.
Sean, given just how much time has passed when Ben Powers is healthy, active? Is he automatically the starter?
Yeah, and understand this. There's always that transition period, and so you were never gonna, throw someone in there for 65. There's that transition period for anyone who's coming off an injury like that.
Sean, similar to kind of Luca's question, but about Bo, I guess he's tied second for most wins in the first 2 years and could catch or pass Russell Wilson. Any thoughts on the idea that?
I haven't kept track of that. I mean, I get it. I'm sure he probably hasn't either. Yeah, I mean, let's keep winning.
Did you happen to see last night that 2-point conversion?
I saw the replay of it, and I know the play they were running, and holy cow, I'd never seen anything like it. Of course, when you looked at it, the rule, the number one rule, and I think Wade Phillips tweeted this. I think I follow Wade, that's why I saw it. All right? But any ball on the ground, defensively, scoop it. I don't care if a fan threw it from the any ball on the ground, scoop it, and so there was a unique play though, and obviously had a huge impact in the game. Absolutely, ball on the ground. But I didn't get to watch any of the game. I just saw that clip.